Hey, do you know what the current tax rates are on long-term capital gains and qualified dividends? Do you know how much of your Social Security is subject to taxation? For that matter, do you know what tax bracket you're in now? All of this important information is available in a handy guide that you can download free from yourmoneyyourwealth.com. Just click special offer. Have all the key 2018 financial data on taxes, retirement plan contribution limits, Medicare, Social Security, and more right at your fingertips. Just click special offer at yourmoneyyourwealth.com and download it free.
One of my primary points that I make to people when they're thinking about buying something, make sure it's something you would want to live in. I wouldn't buy it if I wouldn't live in it, because I want to be able to know that I can attract the kind of tenant that is going to respect the property that I'm putting them in.
That's Joel Larsgaard from the Poor Not Poor podcast. Today on Your Money, Your Wealth, he talks to Joe and Big Al about drinking beer and simplifying your life to save money that you can put towards buying rental real estate, and some things to think about before you commit to that investment property. Plus, the best places to invest in commercial real estate, why early retirement might kill you, and Joe reminisces about his experiences at a foam party in Mazatlan. Wait, what? Here are Joe Anderson, CFP, and Big Al Clopine, CPA.
So what? Early retirement can cause death?
This caught my attention, Joe, because now I'm 60, and it says why early retirement can be a killer. This came out in...
Well, what do they consider early retirement?
62.
That's early retirement? Oh, that's just early retirement due to Social Security.
Yeah, well, yeah. Now, under the FIRE,
the FIRE movement.
That's...
Financial independence, retire early.
Yeah, you could retire at 35 or 40, whatever. But no, this is we'll call it the baby boomers, right? And there's a lot of people pick their retirement age based upon Social Security.
Right.
And there's three key ages. There's 62. That's the earliest you can take Social Security. That's your full retirement age, which is age 66, where you get your full benefits. And then you can wait till age 70 and get even more benefits. So the sooner you take it, the less income you get for the rest of your life.
Yeah, but then you look at it, well, you got it at 62, so you had those dollars. Let's say if you 62 to 70, it's like, all right, well, here, I can have this income for 8 years.
Yeah.
So
that's right. And it depends when you look at all kinds of analysis, depending upon when you take it. If you take it later rather than early, the break-even point somewhere around 80 years old, give or take, depending upon what assumptions.
You can run all sorts of crazy assumptions.
Right.
Here, I'm going to take my Social Security at 62 and invest it in a tax-free bond, getting 8%.
Right. We don't find that happening too often. But anyway, so this is National Bureau of Economic Research. A couple authors did this study. And they found, Joe, that there's an increase in mortality among men who retire at age 62.
How many people did they survey?
Doesn't say.
All right.
I'm just going to take this at face value.
Because it's probably 1,000 people.
5,000. But they've got two authors, one from Cornell University and one from University of Melbourne in Australia. They must be smart.
Yes.
So, but here's what they found. They found that the increase in death rate is quite large, particularly among males who retire and claim Social Security at age 62. In fact, there's about a 20% blip. In other words, people, for the average 62-year-old, it doesn't really go into how they measure it. I'm just going to assume they kind of looked maybe the next year, but there's a normal death rate for a 62-year-old, and those men that retired and took Social Security at age 62, there's 20% more likelihood that they'll pass away.
So how do they do that? So at the funeral, they're asking, "Hey, when did he retire?"
Yeah, they got all the mortuaries, and they just go around to these funerals and
they read the obits. Say, well.
Anyway, so then and I guess they, I'm not a statistician, but at least
an economist.
Yeah, clearly. And but this article basically says that this is not a fluke. This is not a statistical fluke.
Okay.
So I'm going to take that at face value right now. And then they tried to figure out, well, why is this happening, right? Because it's not so much in women, it's men.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I can see that.
And here's what this is circumstantial evidence. So this is, so this isn't scientific, but this is what they came up with, that males, retirees become sedentary. They often watch more television.
Sure.
They often drink more alcohol.
Yep.
They often smoke more tobacco.
Oh, there you go.
And
sounds like a great retirement.
That's where do I sign up?
Can I retire tomorrow?
And then they furthermore, unlike women, they appear to have fewer social interactions when they stop working.
Sure.
And I think, I've seen that in the men and women that I know. I mean, and you and I, Joe, I think most of the people that we know well, we work with.
Yeah.
Right? And then once we stop working, then it's not that relationship is severed, but you don't have that constant contact anymore.
I mean, and I think at any age, let's say if I go to a house party, right? I'll talk to 2 or 3 guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just kind of, like you're close knit.
Yeah, right.
And then you see let's say if I bring a date, she's talking to like 30 women.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like going crazy.
And they're exchanging their email addresses,
and
cell
meeting
phone numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get coffee together. Oh, a glass of wine. Oh,
I'm like, this guy's kind of get me the hell out of here.
Are we too judgmental? Is that the problem?
I don't know. I think maybe we get stuck in our ways a little bit differently.
Yeah, maybe. So anyway, I guess I won't be retiring at 62.
There you go.
Because I don't necessarily want to sit on the couch and watch television and smoke and drink. I've never smoked, so that doesn't really sound very appealing. I do like a beer every now and again.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's Saturday every day.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And so when it's Saturday, it's like, I could have a couple cocktails because tomorrow's Sunday.
Right, yeah.
There's no real huge responsibilities there.
I do know.
But then all of a sudden, if it's Tuesday and you're sitting at the bar at noon.
Yeah, right? Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Although I do know when I go on vacations, and someday when you actually go on vacations, you'll notice that you do drink more on vacations.
Yes, yeah, right. Yeah, that's why I don't go on vacation now.
It would be too tough on your body. Anyway, so I thought that was.
But I think that's a good point that people have to take a look at. The softer side of retirement is that we spend a lot of time on the show of
talking money, right?
Do you have enough money? How do you create the income, Social Security, or everything else? Right. But if you have all the money in the world and you're sitting on the couch watching reruns of The Family Feud.
Yeah, one of our clients I saw about a year ago. I was riding up the elevator with him, and hey, how's retirement going? He said, a lot different than I thought. He was about a year into it, and I said, oh, why is that? He goes, well, my wife and I love to play bridge, and I thought we'd be playing all the time, but she has these bridge groups. They're mostly women, so I'm not really invited to them, and there's nothing to do. So he thought he'd be playing bridge with his wife
across the country,
and she's thinking, "Forget
no way,
that.
That's my stuff.
I got my own friends.
Right,
we've been doing this for years."
Yes, you're not invited to the club. Oh, poor guy.
Yeah. So
I think it's just looking at, all right, before you retire, of course, you want to make sure that you do have enough capital to maintain the lifestyle that you want.
Yeah.
But also start writing things down of what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, what your social circle's going to look like, and everything else.
And I would say even taking it a step further is start that before you retire.
Right.
So like, let's say you love to play trumpet.
Oh my God, we got to take a break.
So if you want to play trumpet, then why don't you get involved with an orchestra?
Get in a band, just a marching band.
I say that because my dad loved to play French horn, and he actually did get in some bands while he was working, which continued when he retired. So Joe, do you play a trumpet or?
Okay, all right.
I did trumpet because that's a cool one.
It's cool.
I could see you doing trumpet.
Yes, right.
Or saxophone. You ever played a sax?
No, no, not musically inclined.
So Joe doesn't play any musical instruments and he doesn't go on vacations. Sounds like a fun guy, eh? We'll learn more about Joe's vacation experiences later in the show. In the meantime, if you already know how you plan to spend your time in retirement, it's time to make sure you're ready for retirement. Learn little-known secrets about controlling your taxes in retirement and preparing for market volatility, increased longevity, rising healthcare costs, and Social Security uncertainty in retirement. Visit the white paper section of the Learning Center at yourmoneyyourwealth.com and download our free retirement readiness guide. It won't cost you a dime to learn strategies that'll make your money last a lifetime. Download the retirement readiness guide from the white paper section of the Learning Center at yourmoneyyourwealth.com.
Alan, it's that time of the show, bud.
It is, and we've got a special guest today because he not only likes financial planning, investing, finances, but he likes beer, which
you and I both enjoy.
Both of those.
It's Joel Larsgaard. That's an awesome name, too.
Yeah,
it
is.
It's like a Viking.
Yeah, Larsgaard.
I love it. Joel, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me, guys. Don't worry, I won't go too crazy Viking on you.
Well, so your podcast is called Poor Not Poor. So what is the genesis behind this?
So really, the genesis behind it was I love drinking beer and I love talking about money. And my best friend, Matt, loves the same. And so at least once a week, we'd have this excuse to tell our wives that we could, you know what, honey, we got to go do this podcast. And really, it's just an excuse to talk about what we love and drink a good beer. So that was the genesis behind it. And really, Matt and I love talking about money, talking about real estate, talking about helping people save money. And so, you know, every week we get to drink an awesome beer and do what we love. And we're building this awesome community of people that love the same things we do.
Yeah, you drink the beer right on the podcast, right?
Yeah, so we tell people what we're drinking. We kind of talk about it a little bit. And so we drink something new and different every week. Well, and that's really fun.
What are you drinking right now?
Well, so I'm not opposed to starting drinking early in the day, but today is
a little too early. Yeah,
a little too early for me.
Got it. Okay.
So what kind of beers? Let's. I don't want to talk about finance.
Yeah,
we talk. It's just been a long.
Let's talk about beer.
Yeah, let's talk about beer. Because sure. Joel, I'm you probably won't like me because I'm just kind of a Coors Light kind of guy. So maybe you can change some of my taste buds.
Enlighten Joe.
All right, well, we can still get along, and I can take you out drinking, and we'll find something else that you enjoy. I'm really into IPAs, sours, barrel-aged stouts. I mean, I run the gamut. I'm a huge fan of craft beer in general, and I wanted my life to be involved in the craft beer scene in some way, form, or fashion. Maybe run my own brewery one of these days, but for now, at least, drinking craft beer and talking money on a podcast is where it's at. But yeah, I like really beer that runs the gamut.
We are in Southern California. You are in Atlanta, Georgia, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
In Southern California, craft beer is pretty popular.
You're pretty much in craft beer heaven.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you got to. You should have came here instead of this Skype interview. You should have just came in the studio.
I mean, we got Ballast Point, we got Stone, we got all kinds of stuff out here.
Man, I screwed up. I'll come there in person for the next interview.
So, Joel, I will tell you, I love craft beer as well. But you being an expert, maybe you can give me a tip, because when I drink maybe more than 2 craft beers, I get a headache the next day. Is there a way around this, or is that just my genetics?
Well, just stop being an alcoholic.
Yeah, maybe don't drink 10 of them.
Well, the guy that founded one of the first craft breweries in the nation, the guy that founded Sam Adams, his name's Jim Cook, and he would eat a ball of yeast essentially before going into his day of having to taste test beers. So that would kind of sit on his stomach and absorb some of the alcohol. I don't do that. Usually I just kind of limit myself to 2. But yeah, if I go beyond that 2, man, I get a headache. But apparently there are ways around this. There's this drink called BioLite, which is like Pedialyte for adults. And apparently that helps. But I don't drink enough to.
Well, I think Joe, I think that's the key. Just drink 2.
Well, wait a minute. What's this?
Moderation.
BioLite? I'm learning something.
You need to get some of that. Well, anyway, I guess we should talk some finances. So you've got this podcast, and how long has it been going?
So we've been around for about 3 months now.
And you talk about investment properties. You talk about saving money. You even talked about simplifying your life, right? Yeah.
So we run the gamut. We really ultimately we want everyone to live a rich, rewarding life and be conscious about the decisions they're making so that their life reflects their values. And I mean, you guys know this. There's just a lot of people that sleepwalk through life. They don't stop to think about, hey, what do I want to get out of this life? And you've only got one. So be thoughtful about it. Be intentional. And money is like the number one thing, right? That's going to influence that in so many ways. And so you want to make sure you got your money house in order.
So I want to talk to you about simplifying, because I just went on a trip to Chile. And I was drawn to the people. They were living a much simpler life than I was, and they were very happy. So what tips can you give our listeners on simplifying their life?
Yeah, I think the first thing is live in a smaller space. I think that's the easiest thing you can do. It's less to clean. It's less to maintain. It's less money every month that comes out of your paycheck to go towards a mortgage payment or towards rent. So I think if you can simplify by living in a smaller space, I mean, if you look at the numbers, the way they've gone over the last 30 years, we've upped our home sizes by an insane amount in the United States. And so, my family, we're a family of 4. We live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. And it's essentially a duplex, and we rent out the back of it. And for us, that just makes a lot of sense monetarily, and it makes a lot of sense lifestyle-wise. We spend a lot of time together. We hang out. And I think the larger your house gets, the more out of control you can feel, because there's more to heat and cool. There's more to maintain. And then it just costs more money every month, too.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, you and I have 4-bedroom homes.
I have 5.
Oh, you have 5?
I grew up in a 1-bedroom house.
Right.
Or 2-bedroom. And there was my mother and father, and then my brother and sister. So there was 3 of us. So my dad made a bedroom out of the attic, right? But it was really small. But we always spent a lot of time, right? We had dinner as a family every night. It was very close-knit family, very close with my mother. I'm very close with my siblings. My father passed. But, now, I don't know what, maybe I went the opposite. I was like, I'm single and I got a 5-bedroom house. I'm like, what the hell am I thinking here? Right? But I could just see that, all right, well, if you have a family and you got a larger house, I mean, you probably never see your kids.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of a smaller house. Like, my 2 girls, they share a room, and we're always there when they're playing. They're in either the dining room or the family room, and I mean, those are the only 2 rooms in the house besides the bathroom and the kitchen, And so we're constantly up in each other's grill, and maybe when they're older, I'll hate that. I don't know, but for right now, it works out really well for us. And I think too, another thing: simplify your car, simplify your commute. People don't think very hard about where they live and where they live in relation to where they work. And the more time you spend in the car, the more time you spend on the road commuting. First off, traffic's a pain, right? I mean, I hate traffic. You guys live in Southern California. I live in Atlanta, high traffic cities. So I hop on my bike and I bike to work a lot. And that simplifies my mind as well, simplifying my life. You just have less need of a car, and it can bring down the cost of owning a car at the same time.
Education is another great way to simplify your life. Why reinvent the financial wheel when the knowledge and expertise of others is freely available for you at yourmoneyyourwealth.com? Access our previous podcast interviews, educational video clips from the Your Money, Your Wealth TV show, as well as white papers, articles, webinars, and hundreds of videos on tax planning, investing, retirement planning, Social Security, estate planning, small business strategies, and just about any other personal finance topic that affects you. Check it all out at yourmoneyyourwealth.com. And if you can't find what you're looking for, just email us your money question at info@purefinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. My name's Joe Anderson, certified financial planner. Big Al Clopine, he's a CPA. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're talking to Joe Larsgaard. It's got an interesting podcast. It's called Poor, Not Poor. Speaking of small homes, I did live in a very small home when I graduated college. I did live in Atlanta for a small stint. I went to the University of Florida. And I lived in the Darlington. I don't know if you're familiar with the Darlington.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, right. Yeah, right across the street from the Piedmont Hospital there.
That's right.
I think it was maybe 200 square feet. I could barely fit in it. I could open up my fridge, flush the toilet, and open the door all sitting in one spot.
And were you happy back then?
I was so happy. I was so happy. And I got, notices every day, please don't eat the pink chips because there's lead.
There's lead.
Well, it is amazing, right? When you think about the good old days, life was simpler then, right? And the older we get, the more we think we need, the more we think we need to work and all these things. I mean, I think work is a good thing. On our podcast, we talk about work. I think it's an uplifting, it's a beautiful thing, and it's a necessary thing. But in America, we've taken work to a new level. And I think when you look back at, quote unquote, the good old days, usually it meant more time with family, more time with friends, smaller spaces, just more time to hang out and build relationships and build community. And I think that's really important and something that as a whole in our culture, we're kind of missing right now.
Speaking of real estate, so how did you get into real estate investing? Big Al over here, he's a real estate investor. What are some things that got you motivated to start being a real estate mogul here?
Yeah, so the thing that initially prompted me to want to be a real estate investor was I wanted my wife to, if she wanted to, be able to stay at home instead of working when we had kids. And I thought, man, real estate, that's this, it's like passive income. Essentially, it's going to provide a secondary job so we don't have to be a 2-income family and we can still live the lifestyle that we want. And so started investing in real estate. And the way that we did it, we would live in a house for 2 years, and then we would move into another one as our primary residence and rent out the prior house. And so at this point, I have 3 rental homes. And like I said, we rent out a small portion of the home that we live in currently too. And so just every 2 years, kind of slowly but surely, I saved up 20% down to put down on the next home and rent out the prior house. And they're all in a really small vicinity around where I live, so I can keep tabs on them. I can even mow the lawns myself. So I'm kind of like one of those down home, small time landlords. But it's really fun, and it's been really big in allowing our family to live the kind of life we want to.
So what are some of the tips you might give our listeners on what to look for in a rental, or what are some of the rules of thumb?
Yeah, so I think for me, there are 3 things. It's very location dependent, but for me, I look for 3 particular things. I want to buy a house that's undervalued. So the person that's selling it doesn't know exactly how much it's worth, doesn't know, this neighborhood's up and coming, things are changing, and they have priced it too low. The second thing, neighborhood's up and coming, right? I want it to be a place that is going to appreciate. And I think most landlords don't think enough about the appreciation factor. And depending where you're living, you might not be able to think about the appreciation factor. You might be in a small town somewhere and their appreciation is just really slow. Where I live, that's something I do focus on, and I know the area well enough that I'm not being speculative, but I'm buying a house because I know that this house is going to go up in value because the area is highly desirable. And the third thing, I want to meet the 1% rule. So if I'm buying a house that it costs $100,000, I want the monthly rents to be a minimum of $1,000 a month. And so if I can hit all 3 of those rules, man, buying something undervalued, making sure it's in a hot part of town that I think is going to continue to trend upwards at a quick growth rate, and then meeting that 1% rule, I'm happy.
Yeah, and I think those are really good rules. I will say in Southern California, it's pretty hard to get the 1% rule, because I've tried for 30 years and I don't think I've ever found one. And my rentals are actually in Phoenix as a result of that, which I'm not necessarily recommending, because it's better when the properties are near your home, so you can check up on them more often. But the cash flows when I was buying rentals, if you got to 0.5%, you were lucky.
Yeah, and I think it depends on what kind of landlord you want to be. I think there's a lot of people I know and that I respect out there that have rental properties in completely different parts of the country, and it works really well for them, and they're buying purely based on the numbers. For me and for my lifestyle, I kind of want it to be local. I want it to be small. I want it to be manageable, and just kind of build slowly. And I think maybe at some point I'll be willing to jump into something a little bit bigger. I'm actually kind of currently looking at a 9-plex that's not too far from me, because the numbers make sense, and I think I'm ready to get into something just a little bit bigger pond when it comes to real estate. But for the most part, yeah, I personally like buying local and being able to lay my eyes on those properties, every week or 2.
Yeah, I think that's important. And so talk about why you would go from, say, a single family home to an apartment. What are some of the advantages?
Well, the advantages are you got some economies of scale going on there. There's one lawn to mow, and when I show up at the house, I can get a lot of work done on multiple units, in one day, as opposed to driving all over town. And getting one loan at this point on like a 9-plex would allow me to have a lot of cash flow, basically in one transaction. So you're going to get a different kind of tenant. You have to know what you're getting into. I'm very particular about the properties that I'm looking at, especially when it comes to multifamily. That's why I haven't jumped yet. You have to be really, really careful to know what you're getting into, and know that the area and that the property type is something that the kind of clients you're trying to attract, the kind of tenants you're trying to attract are going to want to live in.
But I think you got to look at a few other things too. It's, what are your ultimate goals? Are you looking for income? Are you looking for growth? Right? We get a lot of people that say, well, I want to buy a rental property for the tax benefits. But there is no tax benefits because you make too much money.
Yeah, they're phased out.
They're phased out. So
right, and then we have other people in Southern California that say, I'm buying for cash flow. And we actually know that, that's actually one of the most important things I would say. Make sure it cash flows at least decently. But in terms of in San Diego, in Los Angeles, the cash flow that you can get relative to the equity is not great. And so the way that these tend to work here is appreciation, although you can't necessarily count on that because you may buy at the wrong time in the market, but that is how a lot of people make money in real estate in California.
Right, but then that's what blew people up too, because then they're leveraged.
That's right.
They're not making the cash flow, and then the market turns, and it's like, okay, well, now I have all these properties. The cash flow doesn't work. I bought it for appreciation and the tax benefit. I don't even get a tax benefit unless I sell it at a loss.
Right. Yeah.
And then I'm underwater, and then loan for So I mean, so I guess I don't want to paint the picture that it's all rainbows and flowers. That there's the other side of putting in the work. I mean, it's almost like you're a small business owner. I mean, Big Al tells a story completely. of one of his rentals, and the guy parked a Harley Davidson in
the living room on my new carpet.
Oh, that's tough times right there.
Yeah, and that was me being a new landlord and not even getting enough rent for the whole ball of wax.
And I agree. I think there's smart use of leverage when it comes to buying real estate, and then there's dumb use of leverage when it comes to buying real estate. I think if you're going to buy a primary residence, and not put 20% down, in my opinion, you should either put 20% down, or you should have a way to make sure that property is generating some income for you too, as opposed to just being a line item that's negative against your net worth. I don't like the idea of getting a 3.5% FHA loan on your primary residence and then not making any money from it. I think the beginning of all of these things is frugality, is moving slow, is knowing what you're investing in. A lot of people don't take the time to know their market, to know the streets, because real estate, it's so hyper local. You need to know the streets. You need to know what are the plans for that downtown area just around the corner over the coming years? Is it going to be built up? Or are there going to be massive changes? And so you need to know your local market so well. And one of my primary points that I make to people when they're thinking about buying something, make sure it's something you would want to live in. Because if you're buying something that you wouldn't live in, like for instance, this 9-plex, I totally would have lived in it as a young professional, but I wouldn't buy it if I wouldn't live in it, because I want to be able to know that I can attract the kind of tenant that is going to respect the property that I'm putting them in.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, and I think you are right when you say real estate's very local, because every market's a little bit different. And I think where you're at, if you can buy homes cheap enough to get the 1% rule, I think that's ideal, because then you can kind of weather almost any economy. Although I had some less expensive homes in Phoenix, and I would say during the Great Recession, when even though it made it penciled out when I bought it. But all of a sudden, then the rents went way down because people couldn't afford them, and so therein lies part of what you just said: is not get too much over leveraged. Maybe make sure you've got some equity in it, you've got some cushion in case things go wrong. Because when I was a young CPA in my 20s, I realized the people that I saw as clients that were making money either had a business or they owned real estate. But I also saw the people that were the poorest had a business and real estate. So you just have to be careful.
Yeah, it's true. There's so many people that, and there's so many ways to buy real estate with very little money, and that's gotten harder through the years, right, since the Great Recession. But it's still possible to put very little down and to buy a piece of property, to buy a house, and you just have to be really careful. And it begins with frugality, and it begins with knowing your market and not taking on more than you can bite off. And that's why, like for instance, the primary house that we're living in, we rent out part of it. Find other streams of income, make sure it can work, not just if the numbers hit perfectly right? If it stays out, rent it out 100% of the time. You have to be realistic about what rent prices are going to.
Hey, Joel, we're wrapping up here. It is the weekend. Give our listeners a couple of recommendations on some tasty beverages.
All right, so I'll pick a few national breweries so that you can find it in your local grocery store. Matt and I drank recently on the show a New Belgium Voodoo Ranger IPA, and it's their take on the New England style IPA, which is like super hot right now. It's super juicy, it's tasty, it's easy to drink. I think both of you guys would enjoy that one, so check that one out.
It's called Voodoo?
Voodoo Ranger.
Voodoo Ranger. I don't know if I drank anything with the name Voodoo in it.
You got to try it.
You got to branch out. All right.
It's not going to say Coors Light on it.
So we got Voodoo Ranger. What else? You got one more for me?
Yeah, I love IPAs from Stone. That's where you guys are at, right near Stone. I love what they're doing. And I mean, so many good beers in Southern California. My personal favorite brewery over there is Modern Times. Those guys are awesome.
I would agree with you on that.
Never heard of it.
I've had several, but if I have more than 2, I get a headache. So that's what I got to work on.
We're talking to Joel Larsgaard. Hey, Joel, where can people check your blog, check your podcast out?
Yeah, so you can check us out at notpour.com, P-O-U-R, like you're pouring a beer, not P-O-O-R.com. And you can listen to our podcast where you're checking this podcast out at your Apple Podcast or any app that you use to find your podcast.
That's Joel Larsgaard. That was awesome, brother. Thank you so much.
Southern California, there are plenty of ways to learn from our team in person at our free monthly Lunch and Learn events or at our 2-day retirement courses throughout Southern California. Get the tools and confidence you need to help you plan the retirement you've always dreamed of in spite of market volatility. For dates, times, and locations for our free Lunch and Learn events, lunch included, or our retirement classes in San Diego, Orange County, or Los Angeles, just visit the Learning Center at yourmoneyyourwealth.com or call 888-994-6257. That's 888-994-6257.
I had a follow-up point. So we were talking about real estate investing, and I happened to see this last week. It's an annual report from a commercial real estate firm called CBRE. They did a survey of multi-million-dollar investment groups from insurance companies to pension funds, and they asked, where are they investing and why?
Huh.
And this was anywhere. It could be worldwide. And San Diego came in at number 11 of investment places worldwide.
Well,
and
they're buying commercial.
Commercial, yeah, exactly, yeah. But I can tell you, if people are excited about commercial, there's usually residential opportunities as well for the smaller investors. But the reason why they think CBRE thinks investors are drawn to San Diego is because of low vacancy rates and a diversified economy, and the fact that there's not a lot of new development sites for office and industrial, which tends to translate to higher rents and higher profits, which is not as good as if you're a renter. But if you're an investor, it can be pretty good. And Joe, why this matters is that real estate investing tends to pump money into the local economy from construction of a new building or maybe even buying an old structure and fixing it up, says Chris Thornburg.
Oh, really?
Economist and founding partner of Beacon Economics. And we've had Chris on our show 2 or 3 times. And we have him sparingly because we end up looking so dumb when we ask him
He
questions.
doesn't want to come back on the show. I've asked. No, he would like to resign
from
his
being a
guest.
guest.
Indefinitely. Please never contact us again.
Well, every single question we have to ask Chris, it goes something like this. Well, I'm probably going to sound stupid. Which we could just say, I am going to sound stupid.
Well, one time I didn't say that. And I just said, well, what do you think of this? He goes, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Okay. All right. Good chat.
One thing, I remember one time I said, so now that we have the deficit of 20 million, he goes, or 20 trillion, sorry. He goes, Al, the deficit is the annual amount. The debt is okay. Yeah. Okay. You're right. I actually have never made that mistake since then. I was correct. On live radio.
We learned things.
Right.
I learned about a couple of things today.
What'd you learn?
The Pedialyte for men or for adults.
And you learned what beers to buy
for
this weekend?
Voodoo Ranger.
Voodoo Ranger.
Might have to try
to try it out. Now, just if you're curious, in this study, the best place to invest is Los Angeles. Second year in a row, followed by Dallas, Fort Worth, New York City, Seattle, and San Francisco. And also near the top was Phoenix, Minneapolis, Montreal, Toronto, Mexico City. So there you go.
Have you ever been to Mexico City?
No, I never have. Have you?
No.
I've been to Tijuana, I've been to Cabo San Lucas, and I've been to San Felipe and Ensenada and Rosarito.
Oh, my God.
That's where I've been. How about you?
It's Tijuana.
Tijuana's it?
And then I went to Cabo a long time ago.
Yep.
And then I went to, had an awful spring break in Mazatlan.
Why was it awful?
I don't know. It just wasn't that great.
Your cup of tea?
Yeah, I don't know. I was 40. going on spring break with high school. No, I'm kidding.
It was like last year.
Yeah, it was like just got back.
In fact, last week. That's where you were last week?
Yeah.
Okay, now I get it.
Yeah, high school spring break. It was a lot of fun. No, it was a long time ago, and I don't know. It just wasn't my my thing, I guess. Foam parties. I'm not into foam parties.
I've heard about those. I've never been to one.
Oh, it's awful. I guess I could have not gone to the foam party.
Is that where they turn the lights out and you're all walking through foam?
And then they just pump out this foam, and then you're wet, and you're
touching
your whole
whatever,
night shot. And
touching whatever you
I don't know.
touch.
People are doing something in the foam. It's like gross. It's like, get me the hell out of here.
So you're not into the foam thing.
Not really into foam parties. And then so we were in this all-inclusive place that was kind of dumpy. And then they would play these bingo games, right? And the guy would, all of a sudden, it would hit number 69, my favorite number.
Of course.
And, oh, my God. That's all it was for like 3-4 straight days, just hearing this guy yelling in a megaphone about how 69 is his favorite number.
Yeah,
so that stuck.
That's so funny.
So,
very original, too.
Yes. So that...
So okay, well, because I was gonna buy a vacation for
home
all
in Mazatlan.
All expenses paid, and a foam party, and
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Mazatlan.
Let's do it. Let's go to a foam party.
I'm not sure. I think I'm too old for a foam party.
Yeah, I think everyone is too old for a foam party. Well, I'm pretty excited there, Clopine, because one of my favorite shows is coming back, season 3.
Really?
Yes.
And what's that?
Billions.
Billions?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you seen Billions?
No.
Okay.
I don't watch as much TV as you do.
I watched like a couple of shows. What are you talking about? All right,
what do I watch?
Yes. You got any recommendations for our listeners here of what they should be watching?
Yeah. What do I watch? I like The Voice. I watched that. It's like I like Stranger Things.
Oh, I never seen.
See?
All right.
Stranger Things.
Okay.
You've not seen Stranger Things.
I know. I wanted to. That's impressive, Big Al.
Yeah.
All right. Stranger Things.
Yeah.
That's like the Goonies.
It is. It is
right?
actually.
It's about
it's
like
kids.
80s or something.
Yeah. It's kids and their supernatural experiences, and it's actually pretty good. I'm halfway through season 2 right now.
I'm watching Crashing.
Crashing.
Yep. It's about a stand-up comic.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
You should see. Do you have like HBO Go?
I do.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
This weekend.
I can watch all that stuff.
Yeah. Maybe you could spend a half an hour.
Just because I'll forget that. So text it to me.
Yeah, I'll text it to you. All right, that's it for us. For Big Al Clopine, I'm Joe Anderson. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth.
So to recap today's show, some things to look out for when you're buying rental real estate would be an undervalued property in an up-and-coming neighborhood. If you can't ask 1% of the purchase price as the monthly rent, make sure the property at least cash flows decently. Know the local area. And finally, make sure the property is someplace you yourself would want to live so you can attract tenants like you. If you're a man and you retire at 62, try not to sit in front of the TV drinking and smoking your retirement away. Actually, that applies to all of us, not just early retirees. We've only got one life. Let's make the most of it, hey? And if we decide a foam party in Mazatlan is on our bucket list, who's stopping us? Special thanks to our guest Joel Larsgaard from Poor Not Poor. Check out his podcast and his blog at poornotpoor.com. That's POUR, not POOR.com. Subscribe to this podcast at yourmoneyyourwealth.com, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcatcher. And hey, have you seen those ratings and reviews on iTunes? Gotta love it. If you've got a burning money question for Joe and Big Al to answer live on Your Money, Your Wealth, just email info@purefinancial.com or call 888-994-6257. Listen next time for more Your Money, Your Wealth, presented by Pure Financial Advisors. For your free financial assessment, visit purefinancial.com. Pure Financial Advisors is a registered investment advisor. This show does not intend to provide personalized investment advice through this broadcast and does not represent that the securities or services discussed are suitable for any investor. Investors are advised not to rely on any information contained in the broadcast in the process of making a full and informed investment decision.